1,000 Russian and Ukrainian soldiers have been killed or injured in this war. Well, we brought back Joel Rubin to weigh in on all of this. He is a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State. Joel, welcome back to the show. Well, with this increase in drone attacks we're seeing here, are we starting to see a pivot point in this war?
Yeah, Marcel, it's great to be with you, and we absolutely are. This is an inflection point where now the Ukrainians appear to be starting their spring offensive, and this attack into Moscow, if confirmed that it is Ukraine, this attack would signify that there's a lot of calculation underway to try to distract Russia potentially. Certainly, though, this means that from a military perspective, there are new issues that come up, and that means what kind of assistance are we providing that may have supported this attack? And certainly, the Biden administration is concerned or would be very much against any attacks into Russia proper, and has been for some time. So there's a lot happening right now, and we don't know how this is going to unfold, but certainly this is a new phase.
Yeah, and part of that conversation involves how it will impact the U.S. The U.S. State Department repeated that Washington's position, it did not support attacks inside Russia, and it was still gathering that information on the strike. So how do you see the U.S. possibly getting involved in this?
So this brings up a question of the current supply as well as the future supply. If it is in fact Ukraine that is launching strikes into Moscow, that would mean potentially that the United States could tell them to knock it off and to not do that. And despite the potential military gains from it creating a distraction, it's not worth the potential risks. It also does potentially put at risk some of the future cooperation. You know, this F-16 decision by President Biden was predicated upon the idea that Ukraine would not use those to fly into Russia. And certainly that has to be a red line that's made firm. And of course, it brings up the question now, because if drone strikes are going into Moscow from Ukraine, what more could they use more aggressive and more powerful weapons to do? So those are significant concerns. And I think it's going to have to be dealt with, but it's going to be dealt with gently and behind the scenes. It's going to be dealt with in a way that does not undercut Ukraine's ability to show that it has strong American backing. But certainly it does tip into the areas of concern that the Biden administration has been expressing for a long while now.
Yeah, and we're still, of course, waiting for so much more information to come in from those attacks. Do you know, or have we heard anything at this point yet, how President Putin's going to respond to all of this?
Well, you know, this is, of course, the big question about Ukraine's intent here. If this attack was launched by Ukraine, does this mean that the Russian people are now going to realize that they have a war at their doorsteps? And that could be the potential calculation by Ukraine, that they, too, could be a target. And what does that mean for Vladimir Putin? He's now having to marshal more air defenses back at home. It brings the war closer, a war that was at an arm's length for the Russian people and has been for well over a year now. And so that creates risks for Vladimir Putin. That one risk may be that if he continues to keep this war ongoing, and if the Ukrainians continue to potentially incur into Russian territory, that he may well have the Russian people rebel against this decision and very much forcefully try to have it stopped. These are a lot of new variables. That's why this is a pivot point. And certainly this is not something to just be walked back and forgotten now that if it is Ukraine, it's been shown that drones can hit Moscow.
Yeah, definitely a lot at stake here. Joel Rubin, as always, thank you so much for your time and expertise on this topic. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark.